The 2025 MLB Trade Deadline is now past us, and it was absolute cinema, one of the best we've had in any sport over the last few years. A lot of action. Let's break down a few teams. Welcome back to the Ball Institute YouTube channel, your home for all things MLB, NBA, WNBA, and NFL coming soon. Join up our Discord. It's currently free to open up August, and let's talk ball. These are my two biggest winners and two biggest losers of the 2025 MLB Trade Deadline Week Team Edition. Now, if you want more individual analysis on specific players, you got to check out our Ball Institute content. We have a Patreon, we have a Discord, and we have free YouTube podcasts and live streams. All of that is linked in the description below. But for now, let's talk about some teams. Loser number one, we got to start with the bad news, and it's the San Diego Padres. How is AJ Preller still employed? Every year he tries his best to be as reckless as possible, giving out contracts and overpaying in trades, and we might have just seen the last straw because San Diego essentially emptied out their farm system, and the players they got in return aren't all even ideal fits for this roster ceiling in October. Is San Diego even a top 3 team in the National League right now? I don't think so. From giving up the number 3 overall prospect in baseball for a closer, granted an elite one, but still a closer, to a mega deal for Ryan O'Hearn, who is essentially an alternate form of Gavin Sheets, who's already on the roster. Even after all these moves, the Padres are still not the top dog of the National League. If they don't win a World Series this year, we might see the long overdue firing of AJ Preller, because this is getting nasty and not in a good way. Loser number 2 of the trade deadline, and it's sickening to put my own favorite team on this list, but the Boston Red Sox basically just proved to us that they lack direction in 2025. They're clinging onto a wildcard spot right now, but with how good the core of the organization is, you have to be decisive about whether you are buying or selling, and they did neither. Their only moves were picking up a rental in Steven Matz, who is a below-average innings eater at best, and Dustin May, whose entire repertoire simply hasn't been good since the early days of his career before the injuries. Now, yes, Dustin May might get better under the Andrew Bailey coaching regime. He might use his cutter a little more, but his stuff has not been at all what it used to be a few years ago. And at best, this is a good starter at the back end of the rotation. But this rotation, this offense, all in all, with the amount of injuries they suffered, especially in the bullpen, is nowhere close to what I view as a contender in the American League. So you had the choice. You didn't buy aggressively. You had assets like Jarren Duran they could have traded to retool for 2026, and they said no. They also had the opportunity to go all in and trade for a stud in what was a very active trade deadline, such as a Joe Ryan, but reportedly they weren't even close to a single such deal. This was a failure of a trade deadline from the Boston front office, and Craig Breslow, he's got some answering to do in this offseason once the Red Sox get eliminated. Now we head over to the good news. Winner number 1 of the trade deadline, the Houston Astros might just be back. Granted, I did think Houston's best path to contention this year would be to pad up that starting rotation with how many injuries and losses they've had in that department, but they did basically the next best thing, which was address all their offensive needs. The reunion with Carlos Correa makes a lot of sense, and that's the advertised big move, and I think his offensive game will see an uptick back in Houston. But Ramon Urias was a sneaky upside hitter that could take advantage of the Crawford boxes with that pull power. And how about Houston getting a guy that I called a buy low at the All-Star break in Jesus Sanchez, who wasn't even a lock to get traded this year, but Houston went out and got him. I think Jesus Sanchez could end up being one of the best power bats traded at the deadline this year. And if you go back to episode 2 of our baseball podcast, The Deep Drive, I explain exactly why. This Astros team is for sure a contender in what I consider an American League that is pretty wide open right now. And speaking of an open American League, let's go to winner number 2 of the trade deadline, the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays offense by itself can carry them to a deep playoff run. They're going to get their bats back from the injured list, such as Anthony Santander, Dalton Varsho, Alejandro Kirk. But they also added Ty France to the depth chart. And on our baseball podcast, The Deep Drive, we talked about how Toronto needs high-ceiling pitching to give themselves a shot at the pennant this year, and they threw some high upside darts. They got themselves a multifaceted arm in Louis Varland with electric stuff that can give them strikeouts in a postseason run out of the pen, and are also taking a shot on Shane Bieber, whose floor is obviously going to be low coming back from Tommy John surgery, but the upside is obvious as well, because he is a former ace who has postseason experience. They did what they could do without giving up the farm and still competing in 2025. I love this as a win now and win in the near future kind of trade deadline week, and they might be going into the postseason as one of the favorites to pull off a run to the World Series. I love what Toronto did at the deadline. Not too freaky, but productive. If you want full podcast episodes talking ball, Max Goldstein and I are live every Tuesday on Twitch at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, talking Major League Baseball, with episodes also uploaded to this YouTube channel the next day. And of course, our Discord to open up August is still free as well. Go join up to talk MLB betting content or WNBA and NBA and NFL coming soon as well. Early fantasy football coming near you. And subscribe to the Ball YouTube channel for more long-form videos coming soon.